but this is like the lowest hanging fruit on the planet. I mean, this is if people just started doing a weekly email, or I call it a D-mail. Yeah, very corny.
Yeah.
But if they just started doing that the way we're talking about it, which is not I'm the doctor or I'm, corporate like, but personal, friendly, story based. At the end of the year, you're going to have more referrals, more repeat business, more loyal customer patients than you can imagine.
If you'd like to increase the amount of new patients and referrals that you're getting to your private practice by at least 10% with less than 15 minutes of you or your staff's time, this episode is for you. My name is Jared Carter. I'm a physical therapist, a cash-based practice owner since 2010, and the creator of the Private Pay Profit Formula. I help my colleagues to create their own concierge, out-of-network, or cash-based practices so they can regain control of their future, say goodbye to greedy insurance companies, and provide a level of care they are ultimately proud of. In today's episode, the strategy that I'm going to share with you comes from an extraction of an interview I did with a master sales and marketing professional, Dave D. He taught me this email marketing strategy that I started to implement in my practice during the pandemic, and the results have been phenomenal. You're actually going to hear in the beginning a story of the results I was getting when I first started to put it in place in my practice. And then Dave is going to walk you through the overarching structure of how to do it in your own practice. Now, if you do want to put this in place in your practice and you want all the details, you want to literally go through a masterclass workshop on how to do it and how to be able to do it where it's really literally only taking you 10 or 15 minutes at most, 5 minutes if you use ChatGPT, then you can go to drjaredcarter.com/email. Again, this is some of the lowest hanging fruit you can possibly have to reactivate past patients, increase your overall referrals, word of mouth and professional referrals, as well as increase unconverted leads on your email list. So enjoy this conversation I have with Dave D, put it into place in your practice, and see the results that you get. As a bit of a story, as you like to use stories and what you do, I recently took your email marketing course and I started to implement it. At the time of this recording, it's only been maybe a month. And I've not worked up to daily emails by any means, but I just, with everything going on with multiple businesses in life, I said, I'm going to commit to one email a week. I actually need to write that email after this so I get this week's in.
I need to write mine too, just exactly. So you know.
Yeah. So, but I started to do these emails that were not, the typical ones that I'd done monthly before that, your standard email newsletter with lots of pictures and links to all this stuff, but just text only for the most part. Story-based, and started to incorporate, as you teach, the things that are going on in daily life, the stuff with my kids, an experience that I had with a local business owner or whatever. And the response has been amazing. I even, as I mentioned, I launched a new business this week, and I teased that business, just barely mentioned it in last week's email. And I immediately got a response of, tell me more about that, because I think I have a lot of people to send your way. But all of them, it's so fun, actually. Now that I'm getting into it, it's so fun to think about how can I take a normal daily event or an interaction of some sort and then turn it and weave it into some sort of lead to some sort of call to action for my services as a physical therapist. And I mean, sometimes the call to action is not necessarily, it's not like a strong call to action. I mean, a good example of one of the emails that I got a great response to was, I put in an order on Favor. It had been a long 3 days, a bunch of stuff with my kids and business, and I was just exhausted. And I was really excited about these short rib tacos from this place. Well, Favor screwed up the order, never called it in, and I call right at 8 o'clock when I didn't know they were closing their kitchen, but the owner answers, and I was like, do you have an order from Favor, about to come out? He's like, man, we did not get that order. He said, what's your address? I'm going to make this right. And I was like, excuse me, what's your address? He said, wait a minute, actually, what's your order? Because the kitchen's closing right now. I want them to get this done. So he puts in my order, gets my address. 30 minutes later, the owner of the restaurant is at my doorstep, dropping off. And he brought us this cool hat and some other swag and some extra of my favorite salsa. And so I put that story into an email for the next week. told the story, and I just basically my closing was, I've always strived to make Carter Physiotherapy wow its customers the way that Eldorado, the guy from Eldorado, wowed me. If there's anything that I can do to help make that happen in your life this week, just hit reply and let me know. I got like 7 replies. 2 of them were people that said, I just ordered food from that place because of that story. It was so awesome. And now I'm getting feedback of loving these weekly emails. It's like I'm connecting with them on a personal level now. It's just been awesome. So I want to thank you for bringing that. I've been reading your emails for 2 years, so I know what you've been doing, but to be able to sit in that course and learn it and actually go through the structure of how people do it, it's really been game changing.
It's thank you. First of all, thanks for implementing it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Because it works if you implement it. And it's shocking how many professional services providers aren't doing this. So by the way, I think once a week is fine. I don't think you need to get up to daily. I think once a week for your business is excellent. But this is like the lowest hanging fruit on the planet. I mean, this is, if people just started doing a weekly email, or I call it a D-mail. Yeah, very corny.
Yeah.
But if they just started doing that the way we're talking about it, which is not I'm the doctor or I'm, corporate like, but personal, friendly, story based. At the end of the year, you're going to have more referrals, more repeat business, more loyal customer patients than you can imagine. And it literally, how long does it take you to write an email now?
Sometimes it's just 10 minutes. Sometimes it's 20 or more.
Yeah, but really right around that time.
It's not bad. Yeah.
It's really a marketing sin and a selling sin for a practitioner not to do this. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really is. And your open rates will increase, and you're really building a relationship with those folks on your list, to leads to unconverted patients, as well as to your own patients.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not hard to do.
Yeah.
It's not hard. I mean, there's a little art to it. There's a little science to it, but sending out that weekly personal email with personal stories is a game changer.
So if we could, so that listeners could potentially start to implement this right away, what are the kind of the top level things that you will suggest someone who's like, okay, I want to do it. Where do I start? They maybe have never written emails in this way before, or even like monthly newsletter emails that never get opened unless you're in retail somehow. My wife opens all her retail newsletter stuff, but I've never gotten the best response from those in my practice. So how does one get started in this? What are the kind of key takeaways and kind of steps to go through?
Sure. So the very first thing is to make sure that you are collecting email addresses. All right. So I mean, honestly, you got to be collecting email for every phone call that comes into your office. Mm-hmm. For every patient, you've got to be collecting these emails to be able to do this. So that's the first step. The most important thing to know, and we'll go over some actual structure, but let's go over the overall concept first. The overall concept is that you want to make your emails entertaining as well as informational. And the best way to do that is to personalize them, to make them, and I don't mean personalized like, hi, Bob. I'm talking about making them personal email. Just, Jared, as you were talking about, talk about things that are going on in your life. And people will often say, well, my patients aren't going to want to read that. Well, I don't know. Have you heard of this thing called the Facebook, Jared? Have you heard of the Facebook? So the Facebook, that's all it is, right? It's all personal stuff. And so when you write in this way, when you tell a story, just like you did, so I'll often tell stories about things that I've done with my wife, or I've gone out when my kids were smaller, when we would go out on a date together, I would talk about that. And now, of course, there's got to be a payoff for the reader, right? So it just can't be, hey, this, we went to the beach like you did. You told this very engaging story and then tied it in at the end with a simple message. The biggest mistake that people make when writing emails is that they write about whatever their topic is. So by that, I mean, so a physical therapist would say, okay, here are 9 exercises that you can do to eliminate your back pain. Mm-hmm. I'm just making this up, but you get what I'm saying. And then they get into the nitty gritty detail of all of that. And I used to do the same type of thing. The emails that I used to send before I really learned how to write them properly were packed with content. These emails were so good that you could almost sell these as a course, really. Yeah. But I noticed that I wasn't getting a lot of response from them. And when I switched over to making it what I call infotainment, right? Okay. Infotaining, right? Then what happened was my open rates went up, my response went way up, and my sales went way up because people were actually reading them and looking forward to reading those emails. And so the big switch I made was delivering this much of a story or of an intro to my email and this much content to this much story and this much content, right? And so that is what, and then people, you will get response. And by the way, if you do this for a while and you stop writing the email, what will happen is you'll get your patients and prospects will be emailing you, hey, I didn't get my email, because they look forward to receiving it. So you want to think about, okay, here is the point that I want to make, right? So this is typically where I start. Here's the point that I want to make. So I know I want to make this point. And now the reason I want to make this point is that I want this action to happen. I want my prospect or the person, the subscriber, to take this particular action. So what's the point that I need to make in order for the prospect to take the action that I want them to take? So as the late Stephen Covey said, we begin with the end in mind, right? What is the purpose of this? So if the purpose of them is to get them to click on a link to go to a sales page to buy my email course, right? That's what I know, that's what the outcome is going to be. Now, then I think about, okay, now what can I write about that's going to lead naturally to that conclusion? Now, I wish I could tell you that there was a systematic approach to doing this, and there really isn't. Sometimes, on the other hand, I'll just come up with a subject line, and we'll talk about subject lines in a minute because they're really important. So sometimes I'll just come up with a weird subject line, and I'll just start right now. I always know what I want the prospect to do. I always start with that. So I always start with, right, the person who's reading this email, here's what I want them to do, right? So I know that right before I start writing the email. But oftentimes I'll just start writing, come up with a subject line, start writing, and then honestly, if you just do it, you'll see how it works. It flows. You'll just naturally make the connection. Oh, here's how I tie that in. Just like exactly what you did, which was perfection, what you did with that email about the restaurant. That is absolute perfection. Now, you could be dry and you could talk about how we at, what's the name of your
Carter Physiotherapy.
Yeah, Carter Physiotherapy. We strive to provide superior patient experience. Come on, right?
Right.
But not as good as telling that story. Right? Not as entertaining. We live in an entertainment society. People want to be entertained, and so that's the key. So your subject line is really super important. All right. So you've got to spend time on that. I personally like curiosity subject lines. So a subject line that they've got to open the email in order to figure out what it is. So what was your subject line on your email?
On that one I was so looking forward to those short rib tacos.
Perfect. Right?
Yeah.
Perfect. That's great, right? Because you're like, why is this?
Yeah. What?
Right? Well, I've got to read that, right? Because it's right. And by the way, there's no other physical therapist that's sending out an email like that.
Right.
None. Right? They're sending out the one that I just kind of mocked. Right? And again, that's got to get open. That's got to get open. So one of the ones that I sent recently was a police end up saving sex doll. That was one of the.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Right? Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Right. That got a huge open rate. So the curiosity-based subject line is a really, really powerful one. The bizarre subject line, like that's the kind of a bizarre subject line as well. Sometimes a single word subject line or just the prospect's name. So I'm going to teach a technique here that they can take and use immediately. It's not mine, so I'm going to give credit where credit is due, and they can look it up to see exactly how it works. But if you do what I'm about to ask you to do, right? Do it today. Literally, you can do it today.
Yep.
You will get calls and appointments today. Seriously, right?
Let's do it.
So it's called.
Use it in my email right after this.
Yeah, it's called. The marketer who came up with it. It's not mine. All right. It's Dean Jackson's 9-word email. So just look up Dean Jackson 9-word email. Send it out. It's literally 9 words, including the subject line.
Wow.
And I guarantee you, you try it. I guarantee
okay.
you will get business from it. All right.
Okay. I can't wait.
Basically, you're sending it out to unconverted leads.
Okay.
It's basically the prospect's name and are you still interested in buying a new home? Are you still interested in relieving your back pain? Are you still interested in, just look it up. I mean, it's very, very simple, but don't change the word. Don't add anything to it. Just send that email out and you'll see the power of email. All right. So, but then in addition to that, so you should have that one at least once a quarter as part of your email marketing plan. And then you should be sending for you guys, a weekly email, an email once a week, personal story based that comes to a point of a call to action. There should always be a call to action, and it doesn't have to be a hard sell call to action, just exactly like you did, right? Maybe you could share that email with folks because it sounded brilliant. It sounded just perfect.
Thanks.
And if you do that and you do that, so that's 52 emails, you send them every week, you will have an increase in business period over and out, and your costs, other than the 10 to 20 minutes that it takes to write this thing, is, let me calculate it, 0.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the lowest hanging fruit on the planet.
Right. And we've been kind of preaching that a lot this year of, in times of what we've been dealing with, pandemic and economically, you cannot afford to not capitalize on your lowest hanging fruit. That which is easiest to reach, and reactivating past patients is huge. And that's why in my mind, I was like, all right, we need to be digital and we need to be not missing any opportunities with low hanging fruit, which is past clients. So that's why I started doing this. And I was like, I gotta stay in front of people and make sure that they come in, they come see us if they're in need.
Yeah. Well, you just said that was just a gold bomb that you dropped on everybody. So the beauty of this little methodology about sending this one email a week is that exactly what Jared, you just said, is that when the patient is ready, you're going to be the practitioner who they go to, period. Because you're the one that's in front of them. We can't often control when our prospect is going to call us. Now, there's certain things that we can do to create desire and things like that. But the truth is, really, until the person is ready, they're not going to we want to be there. We want to have what's called top of mind consciousness. So when they say, oh man, I've got to go to a chiropractor, a physical therapist, an MD, a dentist, whatever it is, I'm going to Dr. Jared, right? There's not going to be any question. The other thing that it does for you, and it's kind of a hidden thing, is that it builds up your referral business. Because now, even if a person says, oh my God, my shoulder is like really, friends talking to a friend, and one of the friends is on your list, right? The person says, oh, my shoulder is killing, right? And they say, oh, you should go see a person says, I need a physical therapist. Well, the person who's on your list is going to say, I got the person.
Yeah,
I know who it is, right? And so again, it's so simple. It's so easy to do. It will bring in profits and bring in patients. Not doing it, as I said, is really negligence.
Right.